Where we left off, we had simply imported the K1 server. It's a fairly straightforward process. Again, file, import the appliance, navigate through the file system to where you have stored your downloads, and select the OVA file you wish to import. When you click on Next, it'll make some recommendations. Because I already have a machine called Kioptrix 1, it recommends another name. At that point, you would click Import, and after a while, you would have your VM imported. Anytime you import one of the VMs in my class, I am going to recommend that you verify the settings. The important bit to keep in mind is really, it's good to understand what's going on in your environment all the time. We don't really need to change any of these settings. By and large, they're fine. Please note that this is so old that the controller that the OS is using is an IDE controller, not a SATA controller. This did cause some problems from people when they were trying to simply open up the Vmdk files that were originally from VMware. To avoid those technical problems, I've created OVA files to mitigate against that. Audio doesn't matter. We're not using a mouse, so USB doesn't matter. What really matters is verifying your network settings. It should be on your host-only adapter network. It should only really have one. Yours should match. And promiscuous mode needs to be set to allow all. You can click on OK. If you haven't changed anything, you can click on Cancel. It doesn't really matter. And then you can fire up your VM. Please note that I already have Kali running at this point. For K1 and K2, as they come online, there can be some issues. Okay? Because hardware changes, and because they're using Red Hat and specifically CentOS, they sometimes have a configuration utility that pops up. It should be fairly straightforward. You just go through and tell it, to disable anything that it recommends disabling, enable anything it recommends enabling, and if it's a network adapter, tell it to use DHCP. We don't have that problem. That's very good. But as always, we do not have any login credentials. When we looked at Metasploitable, it gave us some login credentials. We do not have that. We're going to have to discover that in our attack. So at this point, we go over to our Kali. It's getting choppy. Is everybody finding it choppy? Please text. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Somebody mentioned that it failed to import the appliance error. Austin, was this the second time you were trying? And Austin, feel free to unmute yourself and start talking. When it got the... Okay, you're choppy, Austin. Or you're maybe...
Are you able to hear me?
I am able to hear you, yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, when I'm on, keep in mind I'm on Mac OS, but
right.
I did import it the same way, and yeah, for some reason it gave me that error.
Okay.
I had it a few times.
Then at this point, Austin, I'll get you to follow along. We are recording, but you're going to need to do a complete reboot of your Mac OS. Before you do that, can you tell me what the error is?
Yeah, hold on. I'll just need to open it again here.
Okay. Maybe you and I...
Well, say it says failed to import appliance. It says start tag expected, and then it's the less than symbol not found. I'll just paste it in the chat here.
Okay.
This is what it said.
I don't know that you can paste in chat. Good luck with that.
Yeah, it should be there.
I don't see it. Oh, sorry, I was looking for an image. Interesting. Okay, So what I'm going to get you to do is to reboot your Mac. I was hoping it was something simple.
That'd be the full. That's
Yes.
The full.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try that then. Just rebooting it.
It might not like the fact that I exported something, but yeah, reboot. I'm going to move forward, and maybe you and I will take this problem offline, Austin, because this is an unusual one. I don't know what that is. So
Yeah.
it's weird,
Yeah.
but
Maybe I was thinking, can I just create and go through the process of a new VM and then
You can.
set it up?
Yeah, you
Okay,
can.
I'll give that a shot as well.
Okay, but the problem is that you need to download the Vmdk from vulnerablehub.com. So what you would need to do is go to vulnhub.com and search for Kioptrix 1. I think it's 1.1 or 1.2 is what it's going to recommend. You will download, I think it's a RAR or a zip, but I'm pretty sure 2 was a RAR. I can't remember what K1 was. But you're on a Mac, so it won't matter. The compression utility can handle it. And then create VM, but no drive. All right, so don't create a hard drive for it.
Okay.
Once created, add the Vmdk from the archive to your VM file you created. So grab a screen capture of that or whatever. I can bring that up if you need to later, but that's the step. That's the process.
Okay, I'll give that a shot and I'll
Okay.
let you know if I have any problems.
Actually, I don't know why here. You can always refer back to the chat log to see exactly what I was saying. That way you don't have to worry about capturing that. Okay? So try that. We'll pick this up. So I'm going to log in as root, and I am going to start my attack against the K1 server. As always, I start a terminal because I never really know what I'm doing with regards to IP addresses. I always verify my existing IP address. IP adder lets me know if my host-only network is configured properly. It's right there. It's 146. That's awesome. I don't think I need to really pay attention. I don't think I need to worry about capturing that. I won't worry about that today. So I know that this is my network that I'm going to scan. This is a specific address on the network. I'm not going to scan that address. I'm just going to scan the 56.0 network address. So I will nmap and double click on the address, and then using the middle mouse button, or in my case it's a wheel, but it still acts like a button, I can depress on that and it will paste for me. Copy and paste is your friend, voids typos. So I copied and pasted the target audience, modifying it slightly so I can scan my network. Very quickly, it comes back with some results. You must understand your network. 56.1 is actually the address of the gateway. 56.100 is going to be the address of the DHCP server. The last item in the list is always going to be the machine that ran the nmap scan. In this case, 56.146 should be my Kali address. It, of course, jives with what we saw before. So 146 is Kali. The only one not known is this one here, 56.134. That is the one we are going to target. We're going to do a more detailed scan of that address. Again, double click, center mouse button or center button to paste and enter. The -S scans for service name and vendor information as much as possible. So we're specifically looking at the services and who supplied that service. And in this case, SSH, HTTP, those kinds of things. And specifically, the Samba soft work. We're going to focus on Samba in this attack, and we're going to try and get as much information as possible. And that's what we're looking for, okay? We're looking for clues. This is all about looking for clues. If anybody has any issues, again, please bring them up in the chat. If my audio fades, please let me know. So I've got some information here. It does look interesting. We don't really get an OS bit of information here, but we're going to try and address that later on. We could have done a full port scan, but we really wouldn't have gotten much more than the results here. The screencast is delayed by 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, so let's do this now. I am typing right now, and that was right now. Is everybody else seeing a delay? Okay. Individuals may have individual, audio's a bit choppy, so we're going to have to make do with the audio. That's the biggest issue with WebEx these days. Video does lag, but it seems to make up for it. Audio seems to be a real issue. And going through my recordings, I have discovered that. I will try and talk slowly. I get excited when we do these things, but I will try and talk slowly. If you get laggy, hopefully it will catch up. Again, a much better recording will be available very quickly after I'm done. I don't have to wait for WebEx for this recording. It's capturing to my hard drive, so we shouldn't have any issues. I'm going to keep moving forward. We can do more detailed scans, as is referenced in the Word document, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. Okay? We have seen that there is a website. It's always a good idea to check out the website and see if there's anything there. We can definitely do that. I launched 2 browsers. I don't need 2 browsers, but I can take a look at that IP address for that website. It's right here. Right-click, copy, go to your browser, paste it, go to that site. We don't get much other than the powered by Red Hat at the bottom. A little bit of a clue that wasn't given in our information here. We get Red Hat Linux here, that's good, but we don't have anything in the OS information. So again, we're looking for clues. We can do a web scan. We can do Nikto with the IP address. We can also do DERB with the web access, with the web address, correction. Neither of those are going to give us very much information, so we're going to move on from that. Another bit of information that we discovered in our scan was that this server is running Samba. So let's take a look at Samba. Now we saw this last class where we actually tried to use enum for Linux to scan for Samba services. And it has become clear to me that with the changes from the Samba workgroup on backwards compatibility for older and frankly more vulnerable versions of the SMB protocol, they have made new versions that Ubuntu and this version of Kali uses. The old scans just don't work. I found a toolkit. I need to investigate it further. We'll come back to it in a future date. But right now, enum for Linux simply doesn't work. All right, it starts its scan, and when I'm looking for information, I don't know what I'm looking for. When I'm running something like this, I honestly don't know what I expect to find, so I'm just looking for clues. Hopefully they'll tell me something. The fact that it continues to not allow me to do any scans here might be an indicator that it is a real old version of SMB protocol or Samba running. Even though I am not getting any real luck with my scan, that doesn't mean I've got no value from this. One of the things that we can take advantage of, like if we're going to attack this, and we are going to attack this, if we are going to attack this, we need to target the version of the SMB protocol. Fortunately, there is a module in the Metasploit framework that allows us to do that. So at this point, I need to run MSF console to start my attack. But you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it here. MSF console, because I'm still doing analysis. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on here. So I'm going to launch the MSF console because I'm still scanning for information. I haven't actually started my attack yet. I'm still gathering intel. It always takes a while to start up. We can always ignore the ASCII art information. In my case, it doesn't look like some kind of a system error, and that's good. So we're going to use something from the scanner repository called SMB version. So it's use AUX tab, and it auto-completes. SC tab, scanner completes. SMB, well, SMB didn't work, so SMB tab and SMB underscore V tab, and it auto-completes for me. Tab is your friend, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Tab is your friend. I know there's only male students enrolled in this course, but I might share this video beyond just this class, so Tab is your friend, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? We're going to use that, as always, when we load one of these modules in the Metasploit framework. We want to show options to understand what it is we need to configure. Anything in the required column that says yes must be set. All right? The number of threads must be set. It is set. We're not going to worry about that. The domain, the pass, and the user are optional values. We're not going to set them. Frankly, we don't know them. We've got an indication of a work group, but it doesn't look like there's any domain information. Maybe the work group, the my or the y, my work group or whatever it was, that might work. We don't need to set it. We're not going to worry about it right now. We do, however, need to set the rhosts value. That can simply be the IP address we had before. So we need to set rhosts, and I tend to match the case. All right. That said, rhosts in uppercase, I tend to use that. I think I still have in the clipboard my IP address. That's perfect. Otherwise, I would type it in, scroll up, what have you. So I'm going to set the rhosts to the IP address of my target environment. I am targeting this K1 server. I need to set the IP address for that K1 server. And then it's simply a case of running the exploit. And hopefully it will tell me information. And we have it right here. We've got Samba 2.2.1a, okay, which is interesting information. But what we need to do is we need now to investigate this a little bit further. We can leave this here. We can exit out, but we need to go back to our terminal without being inside of the Metasploit framework console. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a new tab, or as you see here, Control-Shift-T. Control-Shift-T gives me a new tab, and I am ready to go. And I'm going to search the online repository. For those of you following in the handout, we are at the bottom of page 4 of this handout. So we're about halfway through. We're actually quite a bit further than halfway, but in the document we're about halfway through. Okay? So I'm going to type in search exploit. There is a huge typo in the handout. This is what it looks like. Tab is your friend. It is search exploit, and I'm going to search for Samba. I'm not going to search for 2.2.1a. That might be too restrictive. If I search in that fine of a detail, I might miss something that's just for 2.2 in general. All right? There might be exploits related to a subversion that if you go too far down in your search, you might miss. Okay? So I'm not searching for 2.2.1a, even though that was the result here. I am just going to search for Samba 2.2 and see what I get. And when I search that, I get a lot of results, okay? I get a lot of results related to this information, okay? This last one here, Samba on Linux version 2.2, that looks interesting to me. Samba less than 2.2.8 allows for some kind of remote code execution, okay? That is very interesting to me, and that's the one I'm going to look at. But to be fair, or to be honest with you, any of these exploits might be interesting. Any of these exploits here would be worth investigating. Was there a question? I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody's mic go hot. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Any and all of these exploits would be worth investigating, okay? We obviously don't have time to go through all, however many that is, dozen or so exploits. So I'm going to focus this lecture again on the one exploit that I know is going to give me some results. In the wild, if you came across this scenario, you would test all of them. Not only because you don't know which one's going to work, but in your report, you need to identify these known vulnerabilities. So at the end of the day, you should check all of them, okay? At the end of the day, we've got an exploit, and we've got some source code in this folder here, correction directory, in this directory structure. I always want to, if I'm going to modify something, I am not going to modify the original. You never know with this source code if you need to modify it. Some people do. Some people dislike the errors that they see. Whoever just joined me, I will make this video available to you later. If you've missed some stuff, please don't worry about it. Okay? Anytime I need to work with source code like we have here, I make a copy of it. Even if I'm just doing a simple compile, I always make a copy. And I always like to have a directory structure to reflect my work. In this case, we are attacking a server that we are calling K1. I'm going to go into that K1 directory, and I'm going to copy the source code that I found. Again, copy paste is your friend. It's in this directory structure here, user share exploit DB, and it's called exploits multiple remote 10.c. I don't want to type all that out. Double click to copy, middle mouse button to paste. Scroll up to the exploit, double click to copy, scroll down, middle mouse button to paste. I'm going to copy that file. I need to specify a location. I am in the K1 directory, so I can simply say dot to copy it here. When I do an ls, it shows that I have a copy of the source code in this directory. Okay? Now that I have it, I can compile that code. Okay? Are there any questions? The obvious question, if you thought about it, should be, well, why isn't it compiled already? Why is it sitting there as source code? And the easy answer is you never know where you're going to run these exploits. Sometimes you need to generate a remote shell. Sometimes you need to grab this source code and compile it in that target environment. Sometimes it doesn't work when you compile it. You need to go in and modify the code. So they just give this code to you. Sometimes you need to go through and take a look at it and fix it, but that's on a case-by-case basis. Okay? Now that I've got this, I can compile it using the GCC or the built-in open source C compiler that most versions of Linux have. All right? GCC seems to be a standard installed compiler. You rarely come across a version of Linux, frankly any modern Unix, that doesn't have some kind of built-in compiler included. All right? I'm going to specify an output to use, and I'm going to create a file called Samba. I'm purposely creating confusion here. I'm purposely doing something so that you understand your environment. So I'm compiling with an output to Samba, and I need to specify a source. The source is, of course, the 10.c source code. And when I type that in, not only does it not throw errors, it doesn't even throw any warnings. When I do an ls-al, it shows me that it has created a compiled version of this source code, and it has set the permissions to allow me to execute it. The problem with my process is that there's already something called Samba. If I type in Samba right now, it says it started Samba. There is a command called which in Linux, which says which, if I type in which, for example, Samba, which one are you going to execute? If I just say Samba, this is the one that it executed. That's not the one I want. The one I want to execute is the one in my directory called Samba. Sometimes when you compile a set of source code into an individual executable, you need to fully qualify the path to that executable. And that's really the reason why I've done this. I don't want to run this Samba here, which exists in this directory. I want to run this one, which is in this single directory. So // right here, run Samba. Okay? And when I run that exploit, first off, it's going to want some arguments. But when I hit enter, it'll say, hey, you need these arguments. If you want to understand what they are, you don't have to use, please don't use vi if you're not comfortable. I should stop using vi. You should take a look at that source code. And it will, if you scroll down, it will show you what arguments it might be expecting further down. If you go through and take a look at the source code, eventually it will tell you what it is looking for with regards to arguments. Here it is here. If there aren't any arguments, it will probably throw this warning back at you, exit the program, say, hey, give me something from this list. You can do that, that's fine, or you can simply type in the executable, again, // Samba, and it says, hey, give me one of these things before I go any further, okay? Which is handy, which gives us what we are looking for, okay? So for me to make this work, I need to specify a platform that I'm going to brute force. We know it's Linux. I may be able to dial it in further, but we know we are targeting Linux here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say -b, and I'm targeting Linux, but I also need to specify a host. So let's try that. // Samba -b space 0, and I'm going to need to specify an IP address to target. Okay? I know what it is, but we should always verify it's 134, but I should always go back, make sure I specify, make sure that I know what I'm doing. Worst thing you can do is type in something incorrect, get a failed result, and get a false negative from it. It's the worst thing a hacker can do. A typo, and you fail to realize an exploit because of a typo, you never want to make that mistake. So now I have typed in // Samba. I'm saying brute force a Linux system and target that IP address. And when I do that, I get the following. Okay? I get, looks like it's created some kind of a shell. It says it's worked, and it says my ID might be root. Really? Well, let's try that. Who am I? Root. PWD. You're in the temp folder. All right, but I am in as root. That is awesome. At this point, I could try going into the password file and crack either the John or the Harold password. I can even try cracking the root password by stealing those files. Because I can also, as root, take a look at not only the password file, but I can also take a look at the shadow file. And I have clearly some string1 string, which I believe are MD5 encrypted password hashes. So I could probably take these over and try and crack them with John the Ripper. Are there any questions? Okay. Well, is my audio still working? Is it still coming through clearly? That's good. Thank you. Then I'm going to keep going. There is another exploit that we want to take a look at. Back here in my initial scan, correction. Yeah, you see, when I started my shell here, that was a mistake. I probably should have gone to a different one, but that's fine. We also noticed, as I said, you want to try all of these things, but it made some kind of remote buffer overflow that allowed me to maybe do some remote command execution. Okay? There's a lot of stuff going on about this calling trans to open that we might be able to take advantage of. Now we can try taking copies of this source code and compiling it. But another way of realizing this exploit is to try and take a look and see if we can't focus. Because again, it's Samba 2.2.x, Samba 2.2.x, all right? So why don't we try and take advantage of this and see what it is? Fortunately, this call trans to open exploit is available to us in the Metasploit framework. So I am again going to open up a new tab. Keep in mind that I can rename these. So this was exploit 1 using the 10.c source code, just so I can organize my thoughts a little bit better. This is, let's rename that. We're going to call that MSF console attack 1. And we're going to go over to our tab here. Let's give that a name because this is going to be MSF console attack 2. Do you need to do this? No, you do not. But after a while, you may have so many tabs opening and you may want to do a couple of competencies with me that you may lose track. If you have multiple attacks happening, I encourage you to do multiple desktops. If you want even more workspace settings, give yourself 3, maybe 4 workspaces, and then you can even jump between different workspaces as need be. All right, that's workspace 2, that's workspace 3, that's workspace 4, but I'm going to focus on workspace 1 for today. Better way of organizing your thoughts should you need to. When we saw in our exploit query that there was a trans to open exploit, maybe we could try exploiting that in the Metasploit framework. Again, interesting ASCII art, but we can ignore it. I am, by the way, on page 5 of the handout. We're almost done as well, so I'm not going to have a chance to do the other exploit, but we'll figure that out maybe tomorrow's class. I am planning to lecture right now for tomorrow's class because of the technical problems we had today. I apologize, but I'm planning to lecture for tomorrow's class. There will be an email to that effect. Master. Thanks, Jose. I just saw that. That's funny. Thank you. So I'm on page 5, or I'm on page 5 of the handout. No, I'm on page 7 of the handout. So we're very close to being done. Okay. But as I say here, we can use an exploit called trans to open related specifically to Samba. So I'm going to use xp tab, Linux tab, li tab, sam tab, because I don't have to worry about typos. And then tr tab, and it finds the trans to open exploit. Okay. With this, I can always do show options. That's always going to be fine. But with this one, we're going to try and execute a remote shell. So we want to set a payload. So we're going to set a payload of a generic, and it is a shell underscore rev tab, shell reverse TCP exploit. So I'm going to try and create a TCP IP based shell that I can exploit as part of this attack. Okay, does this always work? The only way you know is to try. Again, this is a curated example, and I'm going to try and keep it focused. But yes, I'm going to set a payload, and it'll say, hey, your payload has been set. So now, when I show options, not only does it show the necessary settings for my exploit, it also shows the necessary settings for my payload. I need to set a remote host's value, and I need to set a local host value. Let us set those parameters now. Set our hosts. Again, I match case, and again, I want to use the IP address that we were targeting. It's 132, I believe. 192.168.56.132, 134 is, I believe, my IP address. Yeah, there it is there, 134. So I'm going to set my remote host, my target host, to 134. I'm going to set the local host, singular, to the IP address for Cali, which we had way back here, and that was 146. Double click to copy, go over to a completely different tab, middle button paste, and it still remembers it across multiple tabs. Okay. Verify to do a sanity test. And it shows that all the required parameters have been set. Okay. At this point, I can simply run my exploit. And we can see what's going on. And this is what you want to see. Okay. It took a couple of tries. It took a couple of different addresses that it was trying to attack, and I've seen this, I think, every time it tries 4 different memory addresses before it succeeds. And then it'll eventually open up a shell to start this session. And as always, who am I? We have successfully become root again. Are there any questions?